hello, bonjour, au revoir, ça va bien, ça va bien et toi, oui merci c'est vous. If that was terrible French and I've offended you, then I apologise for the offence. That's what I learned back in French school class in London. Every time our teacher walked in, it was that. It was bonjour, and we say bonjour. She says ça va. We say ça va bien. She says ça va bien et toi? Oui, merci. I say c'est vous. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I think that's the deal. Right. So I got a question through, which I can only assume that you assumed because that's why you're here. So she actually sent me two messages. She sent me one message, and then like a year and a half later, she sends me another message. I'm actually going to go through both messages because I've only just seen that first one now, and I feel like that's something that I should talk about. The first question, actually no, sorry, it's not a question. It's a statement. She says, I'm upset at your father for not being more careful with you, knowing he was sexually abused too. Now, here's the thing. I get it, and I was a bit pissed off, to say the least, when it didn't even click for me, you know, like when I found out that he was abused, it's all, you know, I'm just not someone that points fingers. I just don't think it gets you anywhere. I felt bad for the guy, for my dad, when I found out that he was a survivor too, and what ended up happening was many years later, I don't know how many, but many years later, I was on a podcast. No, I wasn't. It was a Facebook Live interview between me and someone. His name's Lauren. And he says to me on there, randomly, he goes, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he said, he goes, are you not annoyed by your dad? And I was like, what for? And he goes, because he was abused. So therefore he would have known what type of man your step-granddad was. And he let you around it. He goes, if that was me, he goes, I'll be livid. And then it just literally just like paralyzed me. I was like, didn't even think about it. And maybe a day, maybe 2 days max, I was a bit, okay. Really trying to like understand it. But here's the thing, and I got over it pretty quickly. Why? Because, well, first of all, hanging on to shit like that literally does nothing other than bring you down and make you negative and keep you trapped in the past. What the fuck is the point? There is no point. Right? Let's move on. Let's move forward into a brighter future because there's no going back. Okay? We can go back to, for example, like write a book because we have to go back in order to go forward. Yes. But if I'm just focused on that, there is no going forward. It's just going back and staying back and boom, and it just doesn't do anything. So I didn't do that. I moved on pretty quickly. But also, what I reminded myself about, and what I tell a lot of people, is that when it comes to abuse within a family, it is never black and white. It is a complex thing that there is no, really, there's no rationalization. You might think, well, it's obvious, you know, your dad was abused, so he shouldn't be taking you around. I wouldn't, like me, as I'm not a parent, but when I am a parent, would I do the same thing? No, I wouldn't take my kids around there. Yes, I can say that now. And yes, at the end of the day, that should have been it. My dad should never have allowed me around there. Okay. And if I was around there, then it should be supervised 100% of the time. And if anybody knows my story and knows how it happened, my stepmom, it was supervised. My stepmom was there and she did catch it. That's why it stopped, because he would sometimes do things in the same room as other people. But yes, there's a lot of things where I'm like, that shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't have happened. Okay, cool. But at the same time, it's never... Here's what we need to understand. Like in my situation, my dad was a survivor too. He was living in silence. Okay? And we never know what it's like until we're in that position, and hopefully we never are. Because what could have happened? Well, my dad, because he lived in silence, he probably lived in a lot of denial. And if he said to himself, right, I'm not allowing my son round there, then that means he needs to admit what happened. If I'm not allowing my son round there, why? Because there's an abuser at the house. Boom, now he needs to confront his own truth. Okay? But if he is spending all of his life drinking and sidestepping and not confronting the truth, then he's also going to turn a blind eye to the fact that I'm also going to go around to the house. And maybe his way of helping is to make sure that someone from the family is always there as well. And that's his way of not fully confronting the truth, but kind of like just, a quarter confronting it. Who knows what was going on in my dad's head, but I'm not here to be pointing fingers and say someone is to blame, saying that someone should have done this and someone should have done that, because I just don't feel like we get anywhere, and we're not saints ourselves. I'm not saying that we've done things in our own lives that are the same, obviously not, but as far as I'm concerned, my dad was a survivor too. He was victimized to that situation. He was abused. He was living in dying in silence. He was living with his own traumas that was just eating away at him. And he had no rational thinking. You know what I mean? He wasn't thinking clearly. And that's it. End of story. He had his own story, my dad. That's what it is. I wanted to say that because I know a lot of people do actually say that about my dad. And I love my dad. He's a good man. He made some wrong moves, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? That's it. It is what it is. So now let's go on to the question. So she says, hello, I'm sorry I don't know what time it is where you're located, but I have a question. Don't need to worry about my time. I don't have notifications on my phone anyway, so don't worry. But I have a question. Do you ever have triggers? If so, how do you deal with them? I was sexually abused by my mom's boyfriend, who is my sister's dad, and I believe she has no contact with him. There's certain things I can't see because my mind takes me back. Now that I have a daughter, it's my fear of her going through something. I'm very protective of her, but I don't trust anyone. Listen, first of all, I'm not a parent, and I'm never going to talk, I'm not going to give advice about parenting or anything of that nature. I know for a fact, I hope not. I'm not going to say I know for a fact because that means it's going to become true. What we focus on grows. What I will say instead is that there's a lot of people out there, parents who were abused, who then become people that were abused as a kid, grow up, they become a parent, then they have a child. And when that child hits the age of what they were abused at, shit hits the fan. Okay? It absolutely hits the fan. And I can see why it hits the fan. Absolutely. Is it going to happen to me? I don't know. I hope not. It might do. I won't know until I'm there. So I think so. In regards to you and how you currently feel as a parent, to be honest, I think that it happens more times than it probably doesn't, and you're just being a protective parent. What I will say is that looking at how my dad raised me, he did the best that he could for sure, but my dad was overprotective. He was very constrictive, and just I just felt like I was suffocating through his parenting. And he was very strict with his punishments. He wouldn't physically harm me or anything like that, but just grounding me, sending me to my bedroom. I'm not allowed to leave my bedroom. Even if I want to go to the toilet for a piss, I need to ask permission. If I want to say sorry, he won't talk to me, so I need to write a letter and slide it across the hallway, hoping that he'll pick it up. All of that sounds very traumatic. Looking back, it probably is. I won't accept that because, I don't know, he's my dad and I love him. But what I will say is that don't, or at least try to be aware around how you're parenting them, because oftentimes you parent your own kids in the way that you wish you were parented, which makes absolute sense. But I think there can be a negative thing with that, because my dad always said to me that I'm parenting you in a way that I wish I was parented. And some of it was great because ethics of my dad was the most hardworking man I've ever met. He was a hard worker. I got that from him. Respecting others, got that from him. My dad he wore his heart on his sleeve, and he helped as many people as he could in the family. My dad was a massive, massive family man. And I like to think that I got that from him too. So those elements, yes, but he grew up thinking his parents didn't love him, and a lot of trauma. So he just did the complete opposite to me, which he thought was great. But for me, all I'm saying is that just be aware of how you're parenting and just do the best that you can. But it's like if you're parented over here in regards to really shit, don't go all the way over here, because what you may find that both extremes are quite bad. In the land of extremes, they're quite bad. Extreme negativity, you might think, well, I'm going to go all the way over there and just be super, super positive. And whilst that might make sense, that might just have the opposite effect on the kid. So it's like, well, you don't need to go to one extreme because you experience this extreme. Just come, along. You don't need to go down to the extreme, because that's what my dad done to me. But other than that, listen, I think that's the fact that you are a mother that's trying to be the best version of yourself, be the best parent that you possibly can be, asking me questions like this and actually doing things. I think, listen, my dad didn't do any of that. So I can probably confidently say that you are a brilliant mum. Okay? Now, in regards to triggers, do I have triggers? I don't have triggers. Can I say why? No. I don't know why I don't have triggers. I can assume why. I have one trigger. But here's the thing, is that trigger, I don't know. Everyone, listen, I'm so aware of like how my opinions, because everyone is so different. I don't use the word trigger for my one thing. I'm using it now so I can relate to you with what you said, but I don't call it a trigger. I don't know. It's just a thing that I don't like. I don't label it as a trigger. I think it's probably because I don't like labels. I'm not a fan of labels. I think they have more negative attachments than positive ones. But but anyway, that thing that I'm just not a fan of is in the bedroom. And we'll keep it there because it's not PG. Okay. But it's in the bedroom. Not a fan of it. It doesn't happen. It just happened like once or twice. And I was like, oh shit. It's like the first time it happened, I was like, I'm very uncomfortable. And then I was thinking about it, and I had a feeling why. Then it happened again, and then I was like, yes. I said, please stop. I said, please stop. And then I told the person about it and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't have triggers. I can't help you with that. Unfortunately, I can't. I'll be out of my depth if I try to give you advice on triggers, because I haven't done whatever I would tell you to do myself. So unfortunately, I can't help you with that. Other than seeking out a therapist and other than writing a story, I can't. I can give my opinion on not how to cope with triggers, but more so my opinions on triggers. My opinion on triggers is that I do think that there is a side to some people that they accept the fact that they have triggers, and they will live the rest of their life trying to sidestep their triggers. And, you can't say that, you're triggering me. Or please put a trigger warning in front of this. And 20 years time, they'll still be saying the same stuff. I understand triggers, I understand people's reactions. However, for those people that will still be saying it in 20 years time, this is where my opinion comes into play, which is I believe that triggers are a sign that there's some shit that needs to be sorted out. If you're being triggered by the post, if you've been triggered by this, if you've been triggered by that, it's not about sidestepping it and burying your head in the sand and then allowing another 10 years to go by and you're still being triggered and you're still sidestepping. Like you're just constantly on the fucking run. You're always going to be running away from that or those triggers. So if you see the trigger, highlight what the trigger is, why there's a trigger attachment to it. Then it's like, okay, how can I solve this problem? What does it look like? Not how can I solve it overnight? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. But it's about attaching a problem-solving mechanism to it. And it's, do I need to go and seek a therapist? Is it a specialized therapist that helps with these specific triggers? If you are constantly taking actual conscious action to get rid of those triggers, then hey, listen, I love you to bits, you're my best friend, amazing, because it's action orientated. But if you're someone who's aware they have triggers but you're doing fuck all about it, then it's like no one can help you if you're not going to help yourself. You know what I mean? It might take 10 years to heal that trigger. That's cool, but you're constantly taking action to heal that trigger, and you'll find that if on that pursuit of healing that trigger, you're probably going to be healing a lot of other triggers around it. But it's when you're not doing anything about it because you're too scared and you're sidestepping. You're always going to be sidestepping. Okay, that's my only opinion about triggers. I'm not saying triggers are fake. I'm not saying that people overreact or anything like that, because that'd be very insensitive for me to say, and I don't believe it. I do believe that triggers are real and people do have that shit, but I do think that a lot of people just get used to labeling themselves as being triggered by X, Y, and Z, and they want everyone to cater around their triggers, but that doesn't solve anything in the long run. It solves nothing, okay? Because you can't control somebody posting something without a trigger. You can't control somebody saying something that might trigger you, because all of that is the actions of other people. All you can control is how you're going to solve those triggers. Whether it takes 2 weeks or whether it takes 20 years, it's fine. You're taking action to get it solved. That is what makes the difference, okay? So I don't have any triggers, and I don't have advice on how you can deal with triggers, because that's not a line that I've been down and look into and research. All that I can say is start to raise your awareness around the triggers that you have. Maybe write down now all the triggers that you believe that you have, and then moving forward, when you do get triggered, rather than react to the person or whatever, if you can. I know some triggers can be huge, right? So just allow it to happen, but just be aware and just sort of note it down. And then once you have the awareness around the triggers, then put a plan in place. Like, how can I start helping myself? Because I am the most important person here that needs to heal. How can I heal from these triggers? Okay, the triggers are showing me something. So what is in my past that's giving me PTSD? All right, what are these things that bring these flashbacks? Okay, it's the abuse, it's the rape, it is the partner leaving me, it's my mum leaving, it is the whatever. Okay, and it's like, okay, cool. Now that I'm aware, how can I start putting a plan into place to sort that stuff out? Do I need to see a therapist that specializes in PTSD? You know, do I need to do some type of, EMDR? Do I need to do some whatever, you know? And here's the thing, just research, because I met up with a therapist. It might have been, I think it was at the beginning of last year, and I can't remember what it was now, but she said that she specializes in this new form of therapy that heals. And this was what she said, that many therapists sit with their clients for 4, 8, 12 weeks, 6 months, sometimes even years. And she was like, I don't want to see that same client back in my office. Ideally, after that one appointment, she goes, but 2 or 3 appointments, I don't ever want to see them again. Okay, because that to me is true therapy. And she specializes in people who have PTSD and flashbacks from trauma. All right, she has a lot of military clients, and she helps people with abuse and stuff. And she was sharing, it was like this new sort of, it was from like rapid eye movement, and it was from like EMDR and stuff like that. But she was talking about taking a component just from that, and then harnessing that one component that creates the most impact, and then doing that in her office in Kent, I think it is. And I was like, wow. And it showed me just how many treatments there are in the world that just don't have recognition yet, but could probably be so, like, really, really impactful. I'm bringing that to you because if you have these triggers and you do some research and you do find a therapist and they for some reason don't help, go on to the next one. Do further research. The more awareness you have around your triggers, that will help you with your research to find a niche, specific type of therapist or remedy that you can go down. And then maybe those specific paths might help you with getting rid of those triggers. Okay? But that's all I have to say. I already feel massively out of my depth here giving advice on that, because I just don't feel like I can, and I get quite insecure, because I don't want to bring any harm. I don't want to fuck anyone up even more by what I say. I can have opinions around beliefs which I've shared, but I don't want to go too much into do X, Y, and Z, because I have no idea if it's going to help you, because I don't have experience with it. All right. Maybe let's call that a disclaimer. That's my disclaimer. Okay. Well, I hope that helps in some way. I have no idea if it did. I hope it helps in some way. But any other questions, guys, keep them coming. I'm loving these questions that I'm getting on my DMs and inside the community. Again, if you want to join the Power Tribe 2.0, link is below. If you want to join the Powerful Books community, the link is below too. All right. See you later.